Message has no affiliation with the Department of War. Good evening, everyone. Stay with us today as we welcome in our next guest and discuss some of the hot topics currently facing America. This is the Martin Memo. The Martin Memo. Well, welcome onto the set. It's great to have you. We've, I guess, kind of talked back and forth here the past few weeks. We met originally off TikTok, off one of the videos I posted, and we've just kind of remained in contact since then and just added a little bit of flavor to each of our topics and things like that. So, but for those of you who do not know Nathan, go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right, my name is Nathan Duplessis. I go off of Nathaniel on TikTok. That's where I primarily do like live debates off of TikTok. As far as like political background, I'm a huge centrist, and I'm also a Republican. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the your little, what do you call that, political I forgot what the name is behind it, but your views, and it's like you're almost exactly in the center. So I thought that was pretty great. And you describe yourself as the last living neocon. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say I'm a neocon. Yeah.
Okay, all right, I respect that. I like that. So I guess we can just kind of go ahead into it. And you brought up a couple topics that you wanted to talk about during this podcast. So we'll go into topic number one, and that is the January 6th, what occurred on January 6th a few years ago now. What are your whole thoughts behind it? Do you feel like January 6th was weaponized? What are your beliefs on that topic?
Weaponized? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, a lot of things are weaponized within talk about politics. But what I really wish what came out of like the whole January 6th is that the rioting was not the bad part about January 6th. It did have a key part into it, but my biggest problem with January 6th was the fake elector scheme part. It's when Donald Trump suggested people use fake documents so that his vice president, Mike Pence, should count those fake documents and assuring that Donald Trump is inaugurated as president to try and overturn the election. I think that was the bad part. But in a lot of like media and like what people talk about, they talk way too much about the rioting and less about the fake elector scheme.
Understandable there. So, do you believe that on the whole topic of this, do you believe that Joe Biden was the actual nominee or the actual president? Do you believe he got those 81 million votes? How do you feel about that?
Unfortunately, I think Joe Biden did actually win, and I also think that makes sense as well. I mean, we just came out of like a pandemic, or we were like midway through it, I guess. The economy was really bad, and just everything was just a mess. So I think it makes sense that Donald Trump did not win, that people wanted some sort of like change and didn't want the status quo. And I think we saw this again in 2024. People wanted change. They didn't want the status quo. They didn't like the economy. That's like one of the biggest things. So I think it makes sense that Joe Biden won.
I would agree with that. Originally, I was kind of like, there's no way that Joe Biden won, given his mental decline and everything along those lines. But, as you kind of brought up, the economy was in the tanks because of COVID. You could argue that COVID was mismanaged. Different things like that, and that's kind of what propelled him. Now, do I think he got 81 million votes? I'm still on the fence about that one, but I do believe that he probably ended up winning that election. With that all being said there, I don't necessarily believe that he got the 81 million votes, and I think that because of the uncertainty of that, we're seeing a lot more of an election crackdown, if you will, as far as people maybe less relying on necessarily the mail-in ballots and different things like that, and now there's better parameters in place, and I think we kind of had seen that with this last election against Kamala Harris and President Trump, obviously. And I believe also that it was almost better that Trump lost that second re-election, and the only reason that I say that is because if you look at now, he actually has a Republican Senate, he has a Republican Congress, he has all the tools in place to execute the mandate of the American people for this last election. So I think that it was almost better that he lost this election. And now he's a lot more strategical with what he's doing. Would you agree with that?
Strategical in some ways. Some things feel more strategical. But although the one thing that I would say like more so isn't is things like kind of like tariffs. I feel like those are kind of like on and off. But again, he's not using like Congress to do it, so of course it's just automatically going to be less strategic. But as far as everything else, as far as like trying to like pass legislation, I feel like it's better with the Congress we have now. I feel like he's able to do it, whatever he wants to do, really.
I would agree with that. Would you say that's kind of the biggest stain currently on Trump 2.0 is the whole tariffs?
I don't think it's the biggest stain. I think there's more things to worry about. The thing with tariffs, they're kind of like long-term economic things, so we really don't see the negative or positive effects of it till like later on. But right now, they're not like really defining of his presidency as much as it is with like immigration.
And I listened to one of your videos kind of about your whole stance on immigration. Could you let everyone know kind of what your stance is, what you believe, what you think is good, and what also you believe is too far?
Yeah, so I'm super in favor of having, closed borders. I'm all for deportations. But I also want like America to use its tools wisely. So I don't believe we should deport every illegal here. I believe that there's some people who have been here that should probably be left alone. Like it's probably a waste of money to deport people who have been here 10 plus years. They're going through their process, but it's just taking a long time. Like that's just a waste of money to kick them out when they contributed so much to society or their communities. But yeah.
I would agree with you on that. I think right now, I know that there's a lot of negative headlines that go out there, and that's understandable. It's always going to be that, left or right. But I think currently the biggest thing is getting a lot of these criminals and I should say troublemakers off the street.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of one of the best things that they are doing. I read off statistics a few weeks ago, so it might not be 100% up to date now, but there's been 752 murderers that have been removed off the streets. Those are huge numbers,
yeah.
And I'm very thankful that that is happening. And then as far as like the cartel boats that are getting blown up, I think that's a good thing. I don't know where you stand on that, but I think that is a good thing, and that is leading to a safer, more prosperous America, in my opinion.
Yeah, as far as like just deporting criminals and like getting people out of our country who don't follow our laws, don't want to integrate, don't want to like be positive members of their community, they need to get out. They're a waste of time, waste of resources. They need to get out. Absolutely. As far as like the Venezuelan blowing up boats thing, I think broadly it's a good thing, but I would say there's other countries that contribute more to like the drug crisis than Venezuela.
Yeah, 100%. I think regardless though, if there's boats that are coming into our channels going to poison American citizens, I think that they should get obliterated. And I think that's a good thing. But you are right, there's a lot of other countries that are putting in drugs to our country, and the whole Venezuelan boat amount is just minuscule compared to other countries there. So I think that's a very fair point to be made. I do want to change topics just a little bit here, and that's on abortion. What are your thoughts on Roe v. Wade being overturned, and what do you think that we as conservatives, I should say myself, what do you think conservatives can do better as far as kind of bridging the gap? Because a lot of women, and it shows with the polls and everything that's being conducted, don't necessarily believe in the conservative or Republican approach to abortion. What do you believe can kind of bridge the gap and fix that?
Okay, so I am the most pro-life person you can ever meet, okay?
Yeah.
It's my most radical view. But I also see like the pragmatism in that as well. So I don't only want to see no abortion, but I also want to see like alternatives as well. I want the government to play a huge role in like family planning. Child tax credit, that's a great start. But I want people to feel, and especially women, to feel like they're not alone, or that they can't do something, or that I don't want people to feel hopeless. I want the government to like inspire people. That goes beyond abortion as well. I want the government to inspire people to create businesses, inspire people to create family, inspire people to achieve the job they want. And I think what needs to happen is the government playing a huge role in family planning. So that looks like things like pretty much after the baby is born. I'm all for things like childcare, as far as like health. I want to see preschool activities for that. Maybe even things like free lunches. I want to see those sort of things. I want the government to play a huge role in taking care of our youth. Yeah.
I think that's a fair concept, and I think that's kind of the biggest thing that you could really argue. If you're going to say pro-life all the way and all those things, which is great, that's kind of where I believe. That's kind of what I believe in. But you have to have something that kind of takes care of these people, just like you mentioned. So whether it be better preschooling, whether it be better resources, this, as a Christian, this is where I believe the church really needs to step up. They are always screaming no abortion and everything like that, but what are they really doing to help solve that? They pretty much just will use their picket signs, go to a local Planned Parenthood, and that's about it, but that's not really adjusting, and that's not where people need help. Again, as a Christian, I believe that if you're going to be advocating for that, you better have all those resources, and you better be providing these potential single men and women on all the resources and all the educational aspects to have a family and want to have that life and not just abort it away. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of churches that need to like step up with that. I think also a lot of churches are also afraid to get political, and I really understand that, but there comes a point where it's not really about politics, it's about human rights. And I really want churches to really step up, especially pastors. Even just talking about it goes far. I have my church that promotes nonprofits like Hands of Hope, who aid young parents and mothers. They provide them with ultrasounds. They're just a huge alternative to Planned Parenthood. And I want churches to really step up in taking care of their community.
I would agree. That is, again, great points there, and I think we can agree on that aspect of it for sure. So now, in the perfect world, right? You're president. You're king of the world. Would you completely outlaw abortion, or how would you kind of bridge the gap with that? Would you say maybe a 10-week minimum, like a lot of conservatives has pushed? What would your belief be on it?
It's hard to say. I want to live in a world not really where abortion is banned, but where abortion just isn't needed, where it's just outdated, where, again, I want to provide more alternatives rather than closing doors. But yeah, I guess banning abortion outright, I guess, is what I'm in favor for, but I need to, as like a president or a king of the world, I need to have something in place for people to like have an alternative to, in order for people and families to like truly prosper. Because if abortion is banned outright tomorrow, it's not going to really ban abortions. People are going to have illegal abortions and even unsafe abortions, and I don't want to see that. I want to see people, I just want people to be inspired and feel like they have hope and feel like they can take care of like a baby and a family. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. You hit the nail on the head, and I think I'd probably go the same route as you would go there. So I think that's very well said. And as conservatives, I think that's kind of the biggest thing, or at least myself as a conservative. I know you're a centrist, but that is kind of the biggest hurdle that I feel conservatives are dealing with right now. I don't think there's much that you can kind of hit them as far as those types of beliefs, but I think that's kind of, abortion is the centerpiece on why a lot of people are kind of away from the Republican or conservative platform. Mm-hmm. At least, the young women, usually the 20 to 40-year-old women, this is kind of one of their biggest decisions that they feel like is one of their biggest voting tickets, and this is something that the Republicans and conservatives kind of need to get together and formulate a better plan. So absolutely, yeah. On that right there. What role do you feel like faith should play within abortion? Do you feel like there should be any faith? How do you feel like that we can kind of navigate that?
I would say, unfortunately, most of the United States is pretty secular. We're secular within our form of government. We're pretty secular within our culture. So I would say meet people where they're at, because a lot of people don't want to hear religion. Unfortunately, they want to hear more straight to the point what is the solution? Don't just talk to me about God. That's how people feel, unfortunately. But as far as like messaging, I would move away from the religion aspect and more towards like the scientific aspect of it, I would say. So saying like, okay, here, this is the development of, fingerprints or eye color and things like that. This is where life begins. Like, I would approach it from that point.
Which, I love the argument how they say that, how they argue when life begins, but 95, I believe, I think it might even be closer to like 97, 98% of all biologists agree that life begins at conception.
Yeah.
So they can't really argue that point. However, a lot of them will take that point. So I think it's just a little bit funny on that aspect. And I'm sure you've done your research and kind of know that as well.
Yeah.
So moving on, we're going to move on to our next topic, and that is the Republican Party after Trump. Trump has been a monumental figure. He's completely turned the Republican Party on its head, frankly, and turned it around upside down, this way, that way. And he's really shaped a whole new coalition. Where do you feel like the party is going to go after President Trump finishes?
This is kind of a unsexy answer, but I don't really know. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think a lot of people say, oh, Vance will take up the mantle of the Republican Party, but I'm not really sure what that looks like. Trump has been in politics my entire life, it feels like, or as far as like I've gotten into politics. So like for the past 10 years, he's kind of like had a grip on the Republican Party, and there's no clear vision for what comes after him, which I think is pretty unsettling. I'm even surprised he even won the primary. He'd even show up to a debate, and just people love Trump so much that he doesn't even have to show up to a debate. He doesn't have to talk about anything. He will just win. People just love Trump so much. And that kind of worries me, because I want people to be loyal to ideas and not a person. I don't really know what it looks like in the future.
I would say that I think as long as the we don't get into an economic crisis or something doesn't completely go crazy, I feel like J.D. Vance is pretty much going to lock up the nominee being the vice president, and as long as things go right, of course. So I think that he'll probably end up being the nominee, and I really do like J.D. Vance. I think I might even like him a little more than President Trump. My only thing that kind of worries me about J.D. Vance is kind of his isolationist view of the world. Yeah. So that's just something that I kind of will worry about him. However, I feel like most of his other policies are pretty solid. So I think the Republican Party will be set up. Now, here's the other thing: is a lot of these people that voted for Trump, you said it yourself, they are completely like addicted, basically, the only Trump mindset, and it's like, will enough people come out and support the Republican Party or support the Republican ticket after he leaves, or is this just kind of an all-in on him? What are your thoughts on that?
Man, well, even if Trump tomorrow like steps down from power, people are going to still listen to what Trump has to say. So like if whoever Trump promotes, the MAGA movement will follow, like most of the time. But I don't know. You see some people say like, okay, when are we going to go back to normal? Back to the, like Obama administrations or Bush administrations, like that era of politics. How do we go back to normal? And I don't think they'll ever be back to normal-ish. We'll always have like a huge populist leader within the Republican Party. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I want to get your little view beforehand. Who do you think the nominees are going to be on both sides of the aisle? And do you have like a VP counter that you would put with it? Or who do you think will be leading the Democratic side and the Republican side come 2028? Your super early prediction here.
Okay, super early prediction. Vance is going to step up. I think it's clear that he is the next person up. He may have like someone like Vivek or... Vivek. Yeah, I feel like Vivek would be a good VP for Vance. And then on the Democratic Party, man, the Democratic Party is a mess. they don't even know their own identity. There's like a constant battle between the progressives and like the establishment, and they haven't really figured out like, okay, what's best. Harris, I feel like she wasn't very like super progressive. I feel like she was semi-establishment. You see like in droves with leftists like not like endorsing her at all, typically because we're pro-Israel stance. But I think Gavin Newsom, he has potential, but I don't know, a lot of people don't like California, so I don't know. Yeah.
I would say, so I'd go Vance as well for my Republican nominee, probably with Marco Rubio would be my guess, or Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. To be determined, it's still very early, but that would be my guess. And then on the Democratic side, I see everyone saying Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom. My only thing is I feel like he is kind of peaking too early. If you go back into like the 2016 elections, Bernie Sanders, for instance, he was peaking very early, and then Hillary came out of nowhere and basically took the nominee from him. Mm-hmm. And then same with on the Republican side. This might be a little early for you, but Scott Walker looked like he was going to lock up the nomination. He was the former governor of Wisconsin, and then Trump really came out of nowhere and took it from him as well. So I feel like Gavin Newsom is peaking too early. I don't know. I see the Democratic Party, they don't really have a sense of identity yet, but they keep going more to the left and the left and the left. So I could really see it kind of being like an AOC, unfortunately, within the Democratic Party, which I think she would get clobbered with the election. But I could see that base just keeps going more and more to the left side. I mean, you look at New York City, and Zoran Mandami is about to be the mayor for New York City, so it's just, I really could see like an AOC Westmore Democratic ticket currently.
Okay, yeah.
That would be my super early unofficial prediction.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, right?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. There's plenty of time. We got about 3 years until it's crunch time. I mean, yeah, a little less than that, almost 2.5 years until it's crunch time. So with that all being said, what do you believe defines your beliefs as a centrist, and what could you tell this next generation that's coming up, about to vote for the first time, what would some knowledge from Nathaniel be brought onto them?
Okay, so like with my generation, what makes it different from others as far as like approaching to politics is we have like figures online that we look at for politics. So like things like people like Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, like these like these right-wing figures, I see a lot of people in my generation like gravitate to these people for politics and kind of like building their political identity around them. And I used to be that way, but then I kind of like realized that, maybe I don't think the right is right on every issue. The same way I don't feel like the left is right on every issue. I think there's some things people get wrong or isn't the right idea. So I would say take a little bit from each side. I really, really encourage people to listen to debates online. That's the best way to like get out of your bubble and really be able to steelman other people's ideas and arguments. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. That's something on my last episode I actually preached about, is debating is one of the most useful tools that you can use, and it's not just in politics, it's with everything that revolves around this world. That is such a useful skill, and this generation, the COVID generation, if you will, I feel like most of them kind of try to shy away from any sort of confrontation. They were, for years, I mean, the psychological impact that COVID had, just being hidden behind a face mask, that still is playing out today. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of stuck in that bubble of just kind of wanting to be behind the scenes, really no confrontation, maybe a keyboard warrior, if you will. But that is, unfortunately, kind of the dynamic that I am seeing within this generation. So I think that's very important, what you touched on, saying you need to get out there, listen to debates, debate yourself a little bit, even if it's as silly as debating pancakes and waffles. At least you're getting out there and kind of confronting something.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So I do want to pivot topics here. This is one of our last few segments coming up here, but what are your thoughts on the shutdown currently that's taking place in D.C.?
I feel like shutdowns are happening more often. I don't really know the statistics on that, but as if I had to guess, I feel like they're happening more often. This comes from a lot of like people just being more divided, especially our politicians. But when I see this, I feel like this is a huge like lack of leadership from the president and maybe even like House speakers as well. But primarily, I blame the president. Trump said that also in 2015, or maybe it was 2016. But yeah, I think the president should have a huge role in like building a coalition within Congress or like trying to like make a deal. I feel like Trump could easily do that, but he feels like the separation between the branches should be entirely separate. And I kind of disagree with that. I want all forms of government to kind of like work together to like not only pass legislation, but keep the government open and working. I want, like, it's just awful that our government shuts down. I think we're the only country, maybe the only country in the world that actually has government shutdowns, which kind of is pretty weird, but yeah, I would love to see the president actually play a huge role in bringing people together in Congress.
So I will push back just a little bit on this, and we can kind of play devil's advocate on it. So you want the president to have a bigger role, completely understandable, but you said it yourself a little bit beforehand about how the parties are so much more divided than ever. You say Republicans and Democrats, there's pretty much no middle grounds. I know there's a couple of good apples. John Fetterman from Pennsylvania is kind of one of those Democrats who have said, you know what, I may be a Democrat, however, I'm going to go what's best for the country and what's best for the state of Pennsylvania. But that being said, these sides are so polarized, and if one side says the other, then the other side has to do the opposite, and that goes for both sides, of course. So how do you feel like he can get these 7 other votes that are needed in order to pass this resolution? What do you feel like the leadership needs to be? Where can he do better on that front? What would you say?
I would say compromise. And I know that's like a really big deal within politics, because you know, if you compromise, you look like you're in favor of something. And I think it's super important you have the messaging behind your vote. So like, I think people should just compromise, whether it's one or the other, I don't really care. But I want people to have the mindset that there are bigger things in the moment. Like, there's bigger things than just cutting the ACA. There's bigger things than just like trying to like hold on to the CR that you want. I think both sides should concede, or maybe just one side, and then later on try to like do something different. But you know, this government shutdown is actually crazy. So many people are suffering, and yes. I don't want to see that anymore. I'd rather people give up something in the short term, so in the long term, people can, you know, get paid for their work and have the benefits that they survive on.
So I don't know how much of my background that you know of, but I'm in the military. So like, this is affecting me. It's affecting my friends. It's affecting a lot of people I know, because we're not necessarily getting paid. I mean, we have been getting paid because of a good donor who donated some money to help us get paid, and then also they found some funds in research development the last time in order to pay us. But we're not necessarily getting paid right now. We don't at least have a clean budget. We know we're going to get a paycheck. We just don't know that information. So this is affecting me greatly, as well as a lot of the other people I know. And then there's other banks, USAA, that are doing credit checks on a lot of these soldiers and denying them potential funds if this shutdown continues. So this is the direct effect, and this affects a lot of people that I know, and it's unfortunately very scary. So we hope that this does get resolved. One thing I will say on that whole note before we kind of move on to the next point here is the government shutdown, you need 60 votes in order to pass the budget resolution, or the CR. And right now, obviously, Republicans have the majority in the Senate. They have 53, and the Democrats have 47, obviously. With that all being said, I know that there's about one or two senators on the Democratic aisle who have joined the Republicans in order to reopen the government, and they keep talking about how they'll push as soon as they can get this passed. They have until, I want to say it's December, until the next CR comes about, to kind of negotiate some of the changes and different things like that. One of the biggest reasons that the Republicans are kind of holding the line is because, and I didn't get too much into this, so I don't want to speak wrongly, but there's allegedly $1.5 trillion that might be going to healthcare that helps illegal immigrants out, and I know that obviously the conservatives are hugely against that, as they should be. But that being said, it's just kind of like, where do you find this middle ground? And I think that's going to kind of be the ongoing debate, is where do we go from here, as we keep seeing more and more shutdowns happen over the last probably 20-ish years.
Yeah, I think I would broadly agree.
Absolutely. On that note, I don't know how familiar you are with the budget. What are your thoughts on our debt? It just feels like our debt just keeps growing, and where do you think we can kind of find some resolve in that? I know on my earlier podcast I talked about maybe slashing Social Security, and what I mean by that is currently you can draw Social Security at an earlier age. You can currently draw Social Security at 60, and maybe you just push it to 65 when you can start drawing Social Security. Where do you feel like we can kind of clean up the budget?
I think it needs to be sort of two things. You need to cut things, and also you need a way to build more money. You need both. So I'm all for like taxing people more or implementing different types of tax in order to contribute to like more money the government has. But I also want to see things cut. Social Security, yeah, I would say like that is one of the biggest ones. I would say, yeah, I am in favor of people being able, having to wait another 5 years in order for them to collect. But I still want there to be some sort of like application process for people to get it early. I don't think everybody should get their money early. I think it should just depend on, your economic status or things like that.
I would agree with that, and I do want to clarify my comment. You can draw Social Security at 62, so it would be 67 that they could draw, and you can get max benefits at 75 in that case. So just to clarify that, because I know I misspoke earlier, but I think that is a good step in the right direction. And then also I have some statistics. This is from one of my earlier podcasts that I mentioned, that if you really look at it, there is so much room that you could cut. 46 million people that get Social Security within America, they make over $140,000 a year. Why do you need Social Security when you're making over $140,000 a year? Yeah. And that goes hand in hand with your point of maybe the people that are better off, they can wait a little longer or whatever it may be. But I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I think Social Security should be seen as a safety net and not a guarantee.
Yeah. I would agree with that point. And then another thing, you kind of mentioned it earlier, is like the tax rate. Now, I believe that we should lower the tax rate. And what I mean by that is currently the top 1% or the top class in America, they're getting taxed at 37%. However, they're really not, because most of these people that are wealthy find every single loophole that they can in order to avoid paying the taxes. So maybe you lower the tax rate to like a, reasonable number, maybe 20-25%, but you kind of end the loopholes within that. So that way they're probably contributing more instead of finding every loophole that they can.
Yeah, I think I would be in favor of that. Yeah.
Also, I'm glad we agreed on that. Thank you. At least that's one person that agrees with my thinking. So I can respect that too. With that all being said, I want to move on to our last topic before we get into the couple fun questions that I always ask people at the end of the show. But what are your thoughts on the Israel-Palestine crisis? And I know obviously there was a peace deal that's signed. What are your thoughts on where we stand with that today?
So I would say broadly, I'm pro-Israel. When I look at like the entire history, I can confidently say I'm very pro-Israel. But I think it's ever since the death of Rabin, when Benjamin Netanyahu came in power, I feel like that really changed Israel as a whole. Netanyahu is seen as the security prime minister, so he's always gonna like keep Israel safe. That's just how people view him in Israel. And I don't like the current government of Israel. I want to see a more reach across the aisle sort of figure like Rabin, who really wanted to work with the Palestinians. But at the same time, the Palestinians don't they have absolutely terrible leadership as well, just throughout history. Whether it's Arafat, whether it's Abbas, whether it's Hamas, like they're just bad leadership for the Palestinians. And I want to see the Palestinians have the sort of leadership that is going to bring them prosperity. I want to see like leadership that's going to say, hey, there's a better future than attacking Israel all the time.
I could agree with that. Do you feel like that Israel, you kind of mentioned it, how there's like no negotiation. Do you feel like it's almost with the U.S., how it's two polarized sides, or how would you go about it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just such a polarizing issue, even on the global scale. As far as like Israel-Palestine, I think both Israel and Palestine have like very valid grievances, and the U.S. wants to really stay steadfast with their allies, especially Israel. There's a lot of old people in government, and old people love Israel, so that's just how it is right now. Although I will say, I think Donald Trump's 20-point plan, for someone who I think doesn't know anything about Israel-Palestine, I think Trump's plan was like pretty good. Now, of course, I think he had advisors giving him those points and like running it down. But yeah, I think I'm broadly in favor of that. I'm, in a way, optimistic about the future. But I really hope the U.S. still plays a huge role in contributing to negotiations, as it always has been with Israel-Palestine. We saw this with the Camp David Accords, with the Oslo Accords, even the Abraham Accords with Trump, and I want to see the U.S. really be involved in this issue.
I would agree with that. Like you, on one of your earlier videos that I had watched, you want the U.S. to be the world police in a way instead of China. I remember one of the China. You did a funny face. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right with that. It should be the U.S. should be kind of the global police, because I guarantee you, a China that's being the world police is just going to be a bad world overall.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I do want to go over one last question here, and that is, before we move on to the fun questions, I should say, and that is the two-party system. We keep talking about how it's so polarized right now. It's either you're left or you're right. There's truly no in-between. I know you're a centrist, and there are still, it's a dying breed, but there are still a few people that are within the center. Do you feel like we need to get rid of the two-party system? Would you be in favor of maybe a 3- or 4-party system? What are your overall thoughts on that?
I see Europe and their political system, and I'm like, this is so confusing, this is chaotic. But, one of the positive things about their system is that, more people are represented in a more accurate way. So, like, I really like that. But, as a centrist, I've never actually, like, worked on, like, centrist campaigns or promoted centrist figures, just because it's not really going to do anything. I don't think that a third or fourth party would help the United States as far as its polarization. I actually kind of like the two-party system. The biggest thing is with our polarization is rhetoric. Rhetoric on primarily both sides need a change, on how we talk about issues need a change. And I would love to see both parties like kind of move to the center. I feel like that's a better outcome than the left moving further left or the right going further right. Yeah.
I feel like there's the horseshoe theory, and that's kind of where we're floating right now. I feel like a lot more people keep going to the opposite ends, and soon it's almost going to form like a horseshoe, and they're going to come together. It's going to be a whole nightmare. But we keep going. It's like when one party stoops low, the other one stoops lower, and vice versa. So I think we need to kind of pull it all in together, if you will, like you said, and kind of come more towards the center and stop fighting against each other and actually getting real solutions done, and not just having a mudslinging fest up at Capitol Hill. So
Yeah,
I would agree with that. All right, now we get to move on to the more fun questions, if you will. So usually I ask about 2 or 3 fun questions, just kind of have a little fun at the end of the podcast here. So with that being said, if you had one superpower, what power would you be? What power would you have and why?
Either mind control or mind reading would be pretty good as far just for me, I think that would be really awesome, just because of my political ambitions.
So you would control everyone's minds to vote for you? Is that what it is?
I don't like the idea of I don't really like that idea as far as making people vote for me in that way. But mind controlling as far as stopping dictators from gassing their own people. That's a good one. But yeah.
I'd be in favor of that. I'd let you control my mind in that case.
Yeah.
Good. So you want to run for politics within Arizona, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
How do you feel like are you going to start kind of at the lower level politics and then hopefully make your way up, and then who knows, maybe we'll be on a debate stage, or where do you see your political journey going?
As far as my political journey, I would like to start at the local level and go up from there, just because I'll feel like I'll have a more grounded view of my constituents. Like if I go immediately to the president or immediately to Congress, I feel like I would feel like a huge disconnect from the actual Arizona people or the actual American people. So I would like to start at the local level and work my way from there, but at the same time, I'll go where I'm called. Yeah.
I respect that. I like that one. All right, let's see. You'll be able to vote in the next election, 2028, correct?
Yes. My first time voting was in 2024, so I'm excited to vote again during midterms and 2028.
Awesome. Good. That'll be really good. And then I want to get one last good question in for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. And that would be, what is your favorite food and why?
My favorite food will have to be wings, just because I feel like they're a small enough portion to be a snack and a big enough portion to be a meal. They're good for almost every occasion, unless you're at a gala or a 5-star restaurant. Maybe don't get wings, but I feel like they're fun to eat. They're often good. They're typically my go-to.
Well, we can't leave it on that note because you brought up wings. So what's the best wing place around? Would it be Buffalo Wild Wings? Are you a Wingstop guy? Who has the best wings in your opinion?
As far as wings, I think going to any sort of sports bar, it would probably be my go-to. I don't go to wing-centered places, so Wingstop or Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, they're good, but I like the atmosphere as well. That plays a huge part into when I eat food. Yeah.
Okay. And then last question on the wings, and that is bone in or bone out?
I would say bone in.
Okay.
But I used to shame people who had boneless because I'm like, dude, that's basically a chicken nugget.
The fancy chicken nugget?
Yeah. But I do feel like there's just more meat and more food out of boneless. So if you're really hungry and you get boneless, I'm not gonna shame you. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that because that is what I get. I get boneless. I might be one of those weird individuals, but right. Plus, it's less work. I don't like having to eat around the wing or pull it apart or anything like that. I like having the comfort of just being able to take a wing and just munch on it without having any additional work. I shouldn't have to work for my food if it's already on the plate. That's my logic.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well, hey, this has been great. I'm so glad that we were finally able to make this happen, and AWS didn't decide to take a crap on the day of filming today, so that's great. I'm glad we finally got to this point. But it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. I look forward to our future discussions, and I hope that you can, that we can have some future discussions, and you can come back on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I wish my video camera was working, but it's whatever. I'm more here about just try to create a connection with you. I really like your work. I have a lot of faith in you. So yeah, I'm excited for our future.
I appreciate it. We're getting started, still buffing out some of the rough edges, and before you know it, I'll maybe be the next Ben Shapiro or Nick Fuentes. Definitely not either of those. I'll be my own version of myself.
Yeah.
But we'll be up at that level, is what I'm trying to say. But with that all being said, well, folks, that's all we have in store for today. Join us on Friday as we go over the LGBT community. Share your thoughts on X, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. This is the Martin Memo. The Martin Memo.